From the day he was born, Mark Hettermann was influenced by the world of aviation. His father, his uncle, and his brother were all professional pilots, and by age 20, Mark had embarked upon his own life path, following in their footsteps. Ultimately, his professional life was highlighted by a 37-year career as a respected pilot and administrator for American Airlines. Yet Mark's passion for and his skills in aviation went far beyond cockpits and runways on September 11th, 2001, when American Airlines Flight 77 was hijacked by terrorists and crashed into the Pentagon. It was a moment in time that Mark Hettermann had instinctively been preparing for all of his professional life.
I flew airplanes for 40-plus years in various sizes and shapes with the military and civilians, and an airline career of 37 years.
Wow, that's pretty impressive to be with any career that long. What was it about airplanes and flying that inspired you to that length of a career?
Well, my dad was probably the biggest influence, and in that he became a pilot in World War II. He flew cargo during the war, and then when he got out, he stayed in the reserves and got a job with Capital Airlines, which later became United Airlines, and he had his own 30-year career with United Airlines as pilot and flight manager.
How does it morph from your dad being a pilot to his son stepping in his footsteps? Did it follow that way?
It did. I played football at William & Mary, so a back injury intervened to have a premature retirement, and there was a whole lot of energy, needless to say, put into any intercollegiate sport. So I took that energy and I transferred it over into flying airplanes. And it was about a year and a half, which was a very streamlined path to get my instructor's license, where then I could be paid to build up my hours.
So you did flight training and college at the same time?
At the same time.
What was your college degree?
Business management.
So it was kind of a technical and a book learning education at the same time.
It was, really. As it turned out, the business management courses helped me later on in life because I ended up transitioning out of line flying into flight management, flight operations management, and those courses often came to mind.
Are you graduated from flight school before college?
Yes, I did. I actually flew 3 or 4 times a week while I was in college. By the time I get my commercial and instructor's rating, so I can now work for a living and be paid to fly, that was the end of my sophomore year.
So when you're in college and you're flying, are you flying as an airline pilot or independent?
Flying for hire. I flew mostly flight instruction. We had a large group of aviators that came over from the Army at Fort Eustis that had rotary wing ratings. They were helicopter pilots. It was the Vietnam era to kind of set us into a time frame. So they were rotating out of Vietnam without any fixed wing training, and you needed a fixed wing transition course to be able to get your fixed wing ratings, and they were all, or mostly, were looking at commercial aviation, airline jobs as they got out of the Army. My intent at this time was to transition with my degree and with my ratings and hopefully have a major airline hiring and go on with a major airline. My preference would have been United because my dad was with United. As I approached graduation, I also approached or viewed my situation with the draft, and I knew as I came out of William & Mary I was going to be eligible. I had recognized that, and I said, okay, what are my options? If I'm going in the military, I'm going to fly. So one of the options that was presented was the Air National Guard flying program, and the Air Guard program was affiliated or tied in directly with the Air Force, and they had an Air Guard squadron in Richmond, Virginia. So I went up and talked to the folks who ran the squadron, said, here's who I am. They said, boy, would we love to get a guy with your kind of hours. Commercial pilot, instructor rating, twin engine license, flying twins for commercial hire, someone who already had the experience that they could pretty much count on. So I signed up with the Guard, and that was probably as good a decision as I made in my life, because I ended up getting to fly fighters for 16 years, the F-105 and the A-7.
And because I'm not an airplane person, is a fighter a bomber?
Well, actually, they call them, both of them were classified as fighter bombers, capable of not only fighting, which is usually seen as dogfighting, as airplane against airplane with guns and missiles.
Okay.
And also bombing. So they built airplanes, fighters that were capable of doing both.
How long did it take you to get where you were competent in that skill of flying a fighter bomber?
Well, I went through a complete Air Force basic pilot training course, and that brought you up to the point where they could then transition you into a training jet that they called the T-37. Good, reliable, safe, very stable trainer. You went from that airplane to the T-38, which was swept wing, supersonic capable, and you spent about half your time in both those airplanes. Once I transitioned to those airplanes, I was flying in an environment a more demanding environment and a more disciplined environment than I had ever been called to fly in before.
I'm assuming you served in Vietnam and saw action?
No, I didn't. By the time I got through basic pilot training, the year course, they sent us then to an advanced training program for 6 months in the weapons system that we were assigned to. I was assigned to the F-105, so I went to McConnell Air Force Base in Wichita, Kansas, and it took a lot of transition time to take yourself from just regular formation flying to tactical formation flying tactical missions that were based on air defense threats, and understanding those so that when you transitioned back to the squadron or to Vietnam, you were somewhat prepared for the combat experience. After that, you went to survival schools.
Good grief. It was years before you were ready to serve.
Well, it was close to a year and 3/4. By the time you did the 6 months and then the 2 survival schools, the sea survival and the combat survival.
So that if you crashed, you could survive either the water or the land.
That too, and also the combat survival had an escape and evade and a prisoner of war piece.
Did that scare you?
No, I mean it was as realistic as they could make it.
Was it like being dropped in the middle of a movie set where it was, a POW camp?
Yes. They had to stop short of physical punishment, but there was certainly a lot of psychological testing.
Wow. When they did that, were you in a group or did they take you individually?
Both. You had solitary, there was a solitary piece to it where they'd separate you out from the group and put you in a little box.
That would have been freaky to me.
Well, the good news was you knew that on the other side of the door was
Mom and apple pie.
Basically a friend.
Yeah.
No matter how he or she was acting, they were with you. In November of 72, I got out of survival school, and in January of 73, they started the peace talks. Because of the timing, nobody in my pilot training class ever dropped a bomb in country in Vietnam.
Did you ever end up dropping a bomb?
Never in anger. Dropped plenty of bombs.
In practice?
Yes, all in practice.
Are you grateful for that? Does it matter?
It really did matter. You were prepared to do it, and you were committed to do it, to fly the mission as it was presented.